Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's industry webinar. My name is Kelly Barner. I'm the head of content and operations here at Art of Procurement, and I'll be your moderator as well as part of the conversation for today's live event. So, a couple of things before we get started. One of which is just to give you a little bit of a sense of the topic. We're going to be focused on best practices for mid-market IT companies. So we're going to be looking at some of the unique challenges they face, but then some of the consistent requirements that they have, regardless of what size or industry they happen to be in. Depending on the number of resources you have, the strategy that your team puts into place to manage spend and to work with stakeholders may come into question. So that's some of where we're going to get best practices. But this is not a sit back and listen kind of event, which you'll know if you've joined us for AOP Lives or webinars in the past. So quick orientation to the platform that you find yourself in. There's a nice big chat bar up the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to put in comments, ask questions. I'll be keeping an eye on that as we go through today's conversation, and I'll be bringing those points and questions in live. The other thing I want to make sure you see, and I believe somebody already found it because I saw something go by, there's a little emoji button down on sort of the bottom right. Please do feel free, give us thumbs up, give us a little bit of applause, show us some love, helps us know that you're listening. Thank you for that. And we're just glad that you're here with us. So before I bring my guest on stage, I want to tell you a little bit about him. Serge Treefone is the Director of Procurement Solutions at Precoro. He is a troubleshooter, so he's the right person to have with us for this conversation. He's solution-driven, he's relationship-oriented, and he champions innovation. Again, something that certainly applies in IT. So without any further delay, let's bring in Serge and get today's conversation underway.
Hi there. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Serge. Thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm very excited to be part of this conversation, and can't wait to talk about this topic today.
Well, first things first, we have a tradition here at Art of Procurement. I have to ask the question: did you find procurement, or did procurement find you?
This is really a great way to start. Since for me, procurement certainly found me, and at the time when I was introduced to procurement as function and as initiative, it was I didn't know what to expect and what I can be doing here. But once you start diving into all this questions and challenges that come with procurement, you just understand that how well-rounded you should be, to fit in. And this is exciting place to be, because once you're in, you cannot leave just so easily.
Everything else is dull by comparison once you've experienced procurement. Now, the other thing I want to make sure we get to sort of right out of the gate is we know that we have a broad audience with us today. Some are people from IT companies, and others are from companies outside of the IT industry, but who may have responsibility for IT spend. Now, regardless of that, I thought it might make sense to open just getting a little bit of a sense about what you've seen regarding the relationship between procurement teams and IT teams around managing supplier relationships and spend, and if there's any dynamics we should be aware of there.
Sure. I think both procurement and IT teams, they're expected to drive innovation and growth and be cost conscious and reduce risks. But each of those have their own ways of achieving these objectives. And historically, procurement and IT have been operating in certain silos, but I see trend of them starting working more and more together, and successful companies in IT, not only IT industries, when they utilize this successful collaboration, they actually achieving better strategic long-term results rather than them being in silos and each of them working on their own.
Excellent. Now, as we go through our best practices, we have these divided into sort of three categories or process phases. We're going to start by discussing a little bit setting upfront vision. We're going to move on and talk about the people because it doesn't matter how digital things get, people are always at the heart of the value that we can create. And then we're going to move on to measuring and realizing success. So if we start with that vision up front, sometimes it can be hard, especially around IT, to look at both the big picture and also the relatively short-term things that need to be executed. But why is it so important for us to be disciplined enough to stop and think about the big picture, maybe discuss it a little bit so that everybody has that one vision that they're focused on?
I think this is great question, and I think when it comes to such strategic initiatives as optimizing IT span, not only IT span but in general, we could compare this to a sort of building a house. And if you have a blueprint for a house that you want to
Mm,
build, and you have multiple people who look at the same blueprint and work towards building the same house, at the end of the day, once you have built your house, it's going to be looking more of like what you were thinking about initially. Rather, if you start by people just building, everyone builds their own stuff, right? At the end of the day, it's not gonna look like you want it. Like everyone had their own picture in mind, right? But
yeah.
when it comes to realization, like that's gonna be different. So if everyone starts working toward the same goal and everyone is aligned on the goal and objectives where you want to be, it just makes it so much easier and efficient because otherwise the whole project could kind of go off the rails if you don't have that initial alignment.
Yeah. Now, I like your analogy of building the house. Not that anybody should let me anywhere near power tools, not for that reason at all. But I think it works here because a home is something that has to adjust and hopefully works long term. If procurement does a good job working with the business to sort of articulate that vision up front, what opportunities does it create for the vision to adjust, for the execution to adjust as the business needs something new from the technology that they're bringing in?
Of course, I think when it comes to having this blueprint in front of your eyes, so you should be thinking about short-term things that and your quick wins
Mm,
that you're hoping to get with this new project, but also thinking about okay where we gonna be in 1 2 3 years maybe, and where how our house should accommodate to those things where we expect to be in the future. And those are things like maybe we would expect to increase our headcount like double or triple, and
yeah.
maybe we plan to open new offices in other countries. And right away, knowing about those things that we expect to come in the future, we can already start thinking about those. And when you should just add the such dimensions in your checklist and what you are trying to achieve, right? And this would additionally set you up for success. So not only you need to move to other house in 1 or 2 years, right? So you already set up yourself for success, for long-term success, while achieving your short-term goals um, right away.
Now, from procurement's perspective, sometimes the process is as important as the decisions that get made during the course of an effort. And one of the debates that I know has gone on in our space for a long time is sort of looking at the difference between an end to end suite or platform versus putting together a best of breed ecosystem. And this sort of paradigm exists whether you're talking about procurement software or something elsewhere in the business. So it's not about procurement deciding which is best. It's about procurement facilitating the conversation around how the company should make that decision. What advice do you have to offer about how procurement can help lead a good conversation that weighs the relative risks and merits of those two options?
Sure. Each of these approaches has its own pros and cons, and this is exactly the function of procurement to really understand which of these approaches would align better with the long-term vision. And for different use cases today, we are talking about ID, but it applies in general to any company. So you should understand which model would suit you best. And procurement market technology today is booming with so many of these new technology solutions that help you solve different particular challenges. And you need to understand what would be your immediate focus. Generally speaking, I love the approach of best in breed, which gives you really this power of tools that excel at their own area. But with this approach, you should always be conscious about how these tools work together in one
Yeah.
toolbox. Because if it doesn't work, then instead of optimizing and giving you one solution or ecosystem, you end up with a bunch of disjointed tools, and it really doesn't create the efficiencies that you want to get. I once worked with a CEO, and I loved how he framed his strategic vision on what he's trying to do. They were a project-based company, so his goal was to build a system of tools that essentially enable the company to deliver a project effectively, and that consisted not only from procurement, which was one of the important cogs, but there were also the project management solution and
Mm,
HR. So all of those should have worked together really nicely and well, because otherwise it just doesn't work. So this is really important consideration to have once you're deciding. And the second coin or the second approach is, of course, implementing the single platform, which would cover the whole process end to end. And it also has its own pros and cons. And
yeah.
typically, it would come with the larger investment, with the longer timeline for implementation, and also, it would come with certain downsides. And in my experience, those may be the end user experience, which could actually result in hindering adoption of the solution.
Mm,
And it also happens that, I once worked with the client who started with the best in breed solution. Then they switched to a single platform, and while this single platform worked really greatly for them to cover all the areas of the business, the end users were just not so happy with what that solution had given to them.
yeah.
So while from the business standpoint, you can articulate that yes, we get all these great benefits and it's single platform, we need to find this approach, right, to understand which one would work best. And I guess the third approach also, which comes on top of best in breed and central platform, is developing something for yourself, building some custom solution, which is always, I think, comes as one of the options when you just start
Yep.
thinking about what approach to take here. And it also comes with certain pros and cons. Of course, it's amazing to have the platform which is built specifically for you, right? It has everything that you need, but
Yeah.
it always comes with this extra resource that you need to dedicate to really build out, and not only need to build it, but also to maintain the platform. And I see now more and more trend of like shifting from in-house developed solutions to going to something available off the shelf, because it really
Interesting.
allows you to focus this resource on something else, and you could just get additional results here.
Yeah. Well, and as we start to wrap up sort of the discussion around vision and move on to people, I think one of the things that's good to have an eye on is certainly growth, because every business exists to grow, but then the scale implications that come with that. A solution that will work for 5 people might not work for 50 or 500 or 5,000. And those needs have sort of silent tipping points in between them. So, as procurement is working with the project team or working with stakeholders in the company, what are some discussions or milestones that they need to be looking out for to make sure that the solution they choose, whether, like you said, they build in house, they do best of breed ecosystem, or they do platform, is able to scale enough to get them through at least another phase of growth so that they're not re implementing too quickly after selecting a solution?
Of course, I think there are a couple of critical considerations you should be thinking about when choosing a platform. So when you are choosing a solution for a specific scope, You should be thinking about the other areas of the business who work together with procurement. So if you look at the procurement process, that's going to be IT, that's going to be legal, that's going to be FP&A. And when you need to make a purchase, all of those groups of people work together on approving and collaborating and deciding if this is the right solution. So when you implement a solution for procurement, for example, you should be thinking, okay, how it's going to work and play with other
Yeah.
functional areas. And if you are a small business, procurement tool might be one of the first tools after your accounting system and so on. But as you scale up, IT would want to also have their own tools to manage their processes and
Yeah.
legal and so on. So you should be thinking, where are we now? Where we are going to be in the next 6 months to 1 year, and what are our possibilities and opportunities to build the ecosystem. And again, it depends on the approach, right? Whether we go with one platform or multiple platforms, but that's one of the critical considerations, of course, that you should have. And the other thing, of course, is just how easy it would be to scale the platform from 500,
Yeah.
from 5 to 100 and 500 people, because typically those first people who just have been using the platform historically for quite a while, they almost become sort of champions of this approach and the platform,
Yeah.
and they know all ins and outs, they know everything. But as we bring in more and more people, we need to explain to them how it's going to work and what they should do in there. So just thinking how can we easily scale this, how much training and education it requires for the end
Mm.
user, what learning curve is out there. And also, not only we are talking here about how easy can all these new people come in and start using the platform, but also what cost considerations come in with that. And it's always, you should be thinking upfront, again, knowing what are the strategic goals of the company. Okay, are we increasing the headcount and so on? Where are we going to be, and how can we project that investment that we'll need to be making in this technology? And here you should always be on lookout for those things,
Yeah.
because devil is in the detail, and as the platform cost for 5 users may be very different from 500 users.
Absolutely. No, I think this is a great transition because we've talked about people a little bit. And a moment ago, you shared a story about a company where they experimented with best of breed, they experimented with end to end platform, and what they got in the end was a whole bunch of frustrated users. It's one thing to train people, but it's another thing to sell them on the business rationale behind adopting and implementing a solution. How can procurement make sure that both decision makers and also the ultimate end users truly understand and hopefully have bought into the reasons behind systems adoption?
This is such a, I guess, big and critical point in enabling success for the project. And here we're talking about, again, procurement technology, but for any project in general. And I love here the approach of writing the business case for making a change. And
Mhm.
typically, it would start with a headline of, where we want to be, what are we doing here, and then when you lay out really the case for making the change, why what we are doing right now doesn't work anymore, where we want to be, and how we're going to get there, right? And explaining this, and you should be using as the jargon language. It should be in simple terms, understanding how it's going to help us and enable
Yeah.
us to do better, right? With this explanation in mind, it really helps, not only for the end users to understand why are we making such a change, but really for all the stakeholders, because collaboration and such a project like implementing procurement technology of any sort is paramount, right? And having all the
Yes.
stakeholders on the same page, again, referring to this blueprint analogy, right? So when everyone looks at the same blueprint, they would know and understand why are we going here, and how are we going to get there, and what's going to be the milestones, and how this change would look for us. And yeah.
So I definitely understand the need to share the business case, maybe inspire people a little bit about the vision that will be achieved through solution. As a procurement professional, what starts to scare me is taking that to the next level and maybe bringing some users, some decision makers into the requirements setting process. So we've sold people on the idea, okay, we need a new system, we need a replacement system. But when it comes time to say, what will the requirements of the chosen solution be? Now you start to think, if I reach out to 50 people, I'm going to get 50 sets of requirements back. And then I have to reconcile all that. Is there a way to balance allowing people to provide valuable input and making them feel involved, making them feel ownership from the outset of the process without creating this monstrous set of conflicting requirements that procurement is then trying to rationalize down to something that one realistically existing solution can satisfy?
Yeah, absolutely. This is such an also important topic for everyone to be heard. And then once you chose the platform, it
Yeah.
really should serve all these people who will be using it. And I think here the great approach in my experience is to to start with the list of core things that you expect the platform to deliver for you, um, when it comes to those core capabilities. And then when you communicate with the business, then you could say, hey, we are looking for the platform that would facilitate us to do this process. And for sure, it's going to be capable of A, B, C, D core things. But then you say, hey, we know that you will be using this on a daily basis. What else is important for you,
Mm,
that we should be considering? Instead of just reaching out and saying, hey, we want to implement this procurement technology, what would you like it to be in that technology to be true for the platform to be successful for you? Because it's always more difficult to start with the blank page comparing to
yes.
start working off something, and then when you read it, okay, it quite doesn't sound like something that it's going to help me, and I need this certainly to be true. And I found this working great, not only when implementing the procurement technology and looking for procurement technology, but also when it happens that you are doing the proof of concept project, to make sure that it's actually going to work. It
Yeah.
oftentimes, when you have this conversation, okay, so what would be the criteria of success after you test this proof of concept environment? What would be considered a success? So if you just ask this question, uh, it's really difficult to give the answer like this, right? So what would be actually
Yeah,
the
that's
requirement of
hard.
success? But if you start like as the expert in your domain, I would say you could say that we see that requirements and criteria success 1, 2, 3 typically really shows that you gain the result that you were looking for. Does it sound like
Mm,
something that you can work with? And then, of course, starting with something is always more helpful than starting with blank page, right? So that
yes.
approach I find really helping facilitate this conversations and ensure that everyone is heard, but also the fundamentals are met and achieved.
So let's say you've done a good job selling the business case and the vision associated with the solution. And then you've appropriately taken into account people's requirements or suggestions or ideas for what the solution should be capable of. Then you still come to this critical change management point in the project where all of a sudden, all these people you've been communicating with are popping up and saying, well, wait a minute. I didn't realize this is going to affect me. This change is fine for other people, right? But I, as a human being, am not excited about this change. What are some of the change management things that procurement should be thinking about, planning for, communicating around as you go through the project, but certainly probably ramp up as you get closer and closer to rollout?
Sure, I think that one of the critical layers here, or components I would rather say, is finding the change champions inside the organization.
Mm,
So you should be on the lookout for people who you know that they are open to making the change, and this is really a way to gain a quick win from them and saying, hey, to say this department already started using this and they see all these great results, and and those people themselves could share the result, because it's always, you don't want to be the first one, right? But also, so you have this spectrum of people. So some of them might be more conservative, and some of them would be more open to change, and someone would be in between. So you always want to be working initially with those champions who would
yeah.
help facilitate this change management process. And resistance would come in always, right? Because change is difficult.
Yes.
People don't like change in sense, but it's so important to have, well, first of all, this business case for change and understanding why we're doing things, and also having the success from someone who's done this. Not only are the people someone as other companies, but our team, some of our departments, projects, and so on. And then it's just easier to facilitate this change management um, and enable success for the project.
Now, speaking of success, one of the newer trends that I've seen and actually really appreciate is that a lot of providers now have these customer success teams. So it's a slightly less defined role than we might have had in the past, where, oh, I'm training, I'm implementation, I'm right, very segmented. Instead, it's a little bit broader and it's about making sure that the value is achieved, that things are worked through, that the ROI is realized. What role should procurement expect a customer service team or representative to play as they're going through the solution selection and implementation process?
This is a great question and great consideration when you're on lookout for procurement technology. I actually love the even the framing of customer success, because
I do
oftentimes,
too.
well, the name it really uh, it really shows the meaning behind it, right? And really, instead of
Yeah.
implementation specialist, so it's customer success. So it's really this person and this function really is there to ensure that you are getting the value out of the solution you are implementing. And at the same time, this person is really the best expert who understands how the solution should be working ideally and getting the results. And here, oftentimes, you, as the organization, when you are going through the change process, you had certain things that have been working in the following way for years and months before, because it just has been so historically, and just this additional process and changes, they just add on and add on. And really, the moment when you start thinking about the change and how the success would look like for you, it is
Yeah.
an amazing time to stop and again referring to blueprint and think, okay, where we want to be, why are we here now, right? Why do we do all these steps? And here I also have one story. I worked with the client, and they've been using Jira, which is a fairly famous tool in IT companies to manage not procurement only, but it's oftentimes used as a procurement tool. And they just had historically so many uh, layers upon layers of processes built there.
Yeah.
And when we were talking to them, they were like, "We know that we don't need all the sense here, but we've just never had a will to stop
Yeah.
and rethink what's do we still need this?" And when it comes to implementation, the customer success manager is really almost like a coach who facilitating these conversations internally. And this customer success person should also be challenging really all the things from the current customer process and helping them to get where they want to be. Because if you just start implementing a process which is broken in its nature, it just
Yeah.
wouldn't go anywhere, right? So it really takes thoughtful consideration, right, and understanding all the stages, right? So that in that way, you want to be really successful with the platform. And I would say this is a critical function of the customer success specialist
Mhm.
who works with the client.
Now, that role and that team sound like they're important enough to the success of an implementation that maybe it's something procurement should be evaluating at the same time as they're evaluating the solution, making sure, we talked about the relationship between procurement and IT. There also needs to be very effective relationship between procurement, IT, the business, and that customer success team or manager. What are some things that procurement should be on the lookout for when they're trying to decide if either an individual customer success manager or just the way a team is set up is going to be effective given the culture of their organization?
I think many times when the organizations consider a new solution, typically you would be working with the sales representative who would be facilitating all the conversations and showing the
Yeah.
product. And they could send you the case studies or something else, but it's always not only you want to see like the case study, but you really want to speak with the person who will be working on this project. So as the person who's evaluating the technology, I would ask not only for references from the client, which is
Yeah.
effective way really to get a glimpse of what expecting you, but also speaking with the person, because oftentimes it really helps to speak with the person to understand what expects you. For customer success team, empathy is really important and invaluable. I would say the criteria,
Yeah.
and you should really understand that the person on the other side will try not only to understand what you are going through, and help you adjust and facilitate through this process. Because really, again, this person, the customer success manager, they know what they're doing and they implemented the tool many times. So it's important to balance between what they
Yeah.
know, how tools should be working, where the client is, right, where we want to be, and then also managing all the expectations of all the stakeholders, right? So that's going to be procurement and IT and the end users and the finance team, and then facilitate all this process. So you really want to understand what this person is capable of. And I think having a conversation during the evaluation process, but not during the kickoff call of the project,
Yeah.
helps a lot.
Because there are going to be times you're spending a lot of time working with this person, right, to make the whole project successful. Now, as we've talked about vision, we've talked about bringing people along for the journey and making the most of the customer success team. Let's start to think about sort of post implementation, reflecting back a little bit. What are some characteristics or common qualities that you might expect to see if an adoption has been successful?
Sure. Um, I think it's always helpful to have certain metrics and goals, measurable goals that would help you define the success of the project. And I see oftentimes when companies are going through this change management process and they implementing the first procurement solution or they are switching from something,
Yeah.
I oftentimes hear that we don't have a way to measure um, success because we've never been tracking specific goals or metrics because we just didn't have any means to do so. How
Yeah.
do you measure your savings, or how much time it takes you to approve a purchase if there's just no way to do this, right? And again, oftentimes it helps to provide guidance from the solution side on what are the typical benchmarks and results that you can expect. And again, knowing the industry, so for IT company, that's
Mhm.
going to be how much time it's going to take to approve the request, which is one of the um, easiest and long-hanging fruit metrics that you can measure, along with savings, and so on. So those are the things that you will be looking at. And when you are talking about successful implementation in general, so since that like we know what doesn't work, right? When you get another shelfware that no one uses and users
Yeah.
are unhappy and frustrated, so you know that that's the opposite of success. So the success would be the platform that's being utilized, and you know that the users are actually happy with the experience they're getting from the solution. So not only the new technology and new platform becomes the burden, something that's being enforced on the end user. Are they actually happy to use it? And this is, I would say, in my experience, when the end user themselves they are happy about it, you can say that the overall project is a success. Because again, when we refer back to this analogy that I had about clients switching from best in breed
Mm.
to single platform, has it been a success? Like it's have quite a mixed feelings about it, right? Because on the
Jury's
business
out.
side, yeah,
Yeah.
there are results, right? But has it been successful for everyone? Not really, right? So you want to have the solution which would make everyone happy and satisfied.
Yeah. Well, and I know in my own experience, a mistake that I've been part of project teams have made several times is, you're starting to try to decide, okay, was this a success? Maybe you're getting a little bit of feedback. Maybe there's a little bit of static. And so you look back at that vision, and the vision is all of a sudden so fluffy, like, oh, the solution's going to work, or it's going to make everyone happy, or and it's something where you say, but how do we know if it does that? And this actually brings up an interesting comment we got from Belinda earlier in the conversation. She points out that a good question to ask is, what problem or situation are you trying to solve for? At least that's a yes no question. You can look at the solution in place and wherever you are in your implementation and adoption journey and say, are we now starting to solve this problem or address the situation better than we were without the solution? And maybe your answer is going to be uncertain, but at least it gives you something a little bit more straightforward to address. Um, Now, quick question for you. One of the temptations can often be, you talked about complex process, is to select a solution for what it generally does and then spend all of your time during implementation making customizations or integrating things so that it matches the process that you've always had, even if that process isn't ideal. Any advice around trying to adjust your process to fit a chosen solution versus trying to make changes to your chosen solution to fit an existing process?
Sure. I think this is really the question which comes in every time, and this is well, some decisions need to be made when you're going through this change management process. It's
Yeah,
always a part of the change management. How do we approach this? And I generally would say that this is it would take a mix of, you need to be flexible and adjustable to implement any technology. The technology that would be fully built for you is going back to approach questions. So do we
right.
custom? Do we build it from scratch for us, or do we go with something from very beginning? I think also it refers back to the question: what situation do we want to solve for? So knowing all these kind of use cases specifically that we want to solve for, when you evaluate the solution, you should start looking at those scenarios. And I almost, uh, when it comes to evaluation of the platform, you can go into this nitty gritty and try to checklist every functionality if it does it or not. And sometimes it doesn't really set you up for success going through all this level of detail and understanding what the platform is capable of. But also sometimes it's really helpful to do this exercise, because otherwise when you start implementation and you haven't noticed this thing, but it becomes critical, and then you start looking for ways to solve for that, and it doesn't work that way, you cannot just easily customize the solution. Then that's why it's so important to have this blueprint and understanding all the critical and must-have things, because expectation management is always part of this change management process, right? And understanding all the systems that we should be integrating with, and what the platform should be capable of for it to be success. You should be thinking about those things from the very beginning of the process.
Now, I have a great question that's just come in, and I want to sort of pause and take this. When you think about all the things we've discussed, whether it's for procurement or end users or budget holders or decision makers, typically the sourcing effort, the implementation effort, the communication or change management effort is above and beyond what their actual direct job responsibilities are. Um, any ways procurement can manage or communicate around what the time commitment is, what it should be, if there are ways that we can minimize it? How can we make sure that we get ultimately what we need from all of these different stakeholder groups without making the mistake of thinking that this software selection or evaluation or implementation is going to be their primary job as much as the sourcing project truly is ours in that time?
Right. I think change management is always such a critical consideration when it comes to making a decision. So when you look at the ROI calculation and the proposal. So it's going to say that the
Yeah.
platform would cost us X dollars a month, right? But how about change management effort, right? So how much time from the team would it take to implement this platform, and what effort and backing from the team do we need to do this? So always you would have you have the budget sponsor who provide the funding for the platform, but how about those people who will be working this? And I think great way to do this would be to actually during evaluation ask exactly those
Mhm.
questions from your experience of implementing this platform. What is the resource of the team which is required, so then you could use all that information to set the right expectation with the business. Because when the business initiates this change management process and they want to do things better and they have those situations where they want to be better, when procurement does the sourcing and finds the solution that would provide to solve the pain point that they're trying to fix, then we have a clear communication and again the business case for change. So we're going to say that to solve this strategic objective, we're going to implement
Yeah.
this solution, and it would take us and this people this much time to do this. And then having all this information in place before you make a decision, you need to understand, can we afford to allocate such a resource to this project
Yeah.
at this time? Because if you haven't done this exercise and you come in and start working on implementation, and then it's actually you need to do this and this and this, and you have your day job, right, to do, and this is not your full-time job to do the platform implementation. So you should think about your capacity and bandwidth
Yeah.
before you get into weeds of doing the change.
Now, one more topic I want to make sure we cover before we run out of time here is the idea of doing total cost of ownership analysis on a solution. Um, do you have thoughts or recommendations around the benefits associated with investing time to do sort of that total cost of ownership work through? Or maybe even what are some of the most common hidden costs that people don't expect but that pop up in one of these projects?
Sure. I think the benefit of this approach is really that it gives you a more comprehensive understanding of what it would it take you to go through this change management. And we touch on different topics, different parts of this TCO analysis earlier. One of them is change management, and I think this one of the things that people say miss out all the time. Um, Understanding the resource that it would take to do the change. The other aspect would be about the integration aspect. And well,
Mhm.
always when you look at the new solution, so you would want to ask, okay, how do you integrate? But also integration is such a broad topic because it just means so many different things, and understanding again having the blueprint of what we want to build and how this house would interact with all the neighborhood areas and so on. It's so important to understand this, so that when you present the business case for change, not only you say that we have X amount investment, it also takes hours of work to do the change and
Yeah.
also set up the process and do the training for the team. So you always should be thinking about not only the dollar investment, but also all intangibles that come in as a part of this process. And therefore, total cost ownership analysis exactly covers this
Yeah.
process, and it helps you understand how easy or complex it would be and what effort organization requires to invest in making this project a success.
Yeah, I think for me, that business case for change, right? That's sort of the one idea that I feel like we've come back to a few times during this conversation. You can see how that would pay dividends, right? You're sort of forming it during the vision stage, you're sharing it with people during that winning people over stage. And then hopefully, as you're trying to not only decide if the effort was a success, but also provide quantitative evidence, you can look back at that business case for change. And it's something that hopefully people almost get tired of seeing by the time you've rolled a solution out because it has stood the test of time through all the different phases of the project.
Exactly, and it's also when you look at the results of implementation, like you want to measure it. You want to measure it somehow, and you want to set some milestones when you want to understand if it worked or not. So in that business case, typically you would also want to make an assumption on how would we affect those business points and where we would be. And typically you want to look at the timescales of maybe 3 months and 12
Yeah.
months. These are the milestones that I typically see. So in 3 months, you could see if you realized all the quick wins that you expected from the platform. So for procurement technology, that's going to be how much spend under management you could have and how much time it takes to approve, and so on. And on the scale of 1 year, as you've already sorted out your operational challenges, but then on
Yeah.
a scale of 1 year and forward, so you could look at the more strategic outcomes that this project has given you. So typically, you would want to have those timescales in your business case, and then over that period, you could see how successful you are with this implementation, and how the business case to test of time.
Yeah. Well, Serge, on that note, I want to thank you for your time today. You've shared an enormous amount of advice and expertise with us. So thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you as well to everybody who joined us live and everybody who will listen or watch in later on. I appreciate you joining us for today's event. And of course, we invite you to check out all of the other upcoming events happening at Art of Procurement. So without further ado, thank you all so much for your time. On behalf of the whole Art of Procurement team, I'm Kelly Barner, thanking you for spending a bit of time with us today. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you again soon.